off first 6 months, I've never really kind of reflected on it until now. But my first few months were rough. And to be honest, most people would have stopped what they were doing and ran right back to the valet. I would say in my first 3 months, I probably totaled, I would say 10,000 in sales in 3 months. I was doing in-homes, I was driving all around Florida, and I was not having a good time. And what kept me going was not only the vision I had, but also I think it was because I started recruiting from day one. So in my first month, I didn't start alone. I started with two other guys from the valet. So they weren't willing to take the initial leap, but about a month in, they came right behind me and we started figuring this thing out together. So
Mm.
what really made me going and what motivated me to keep an eye on that vision is it wasn't just about me. It wasn't about what can I do? It was I got to do it for these guys. These guys came in trusting me, trusting that this could work. I got to figure it out for them. So there were some days where I didn't want to show up, but I did because they showed up too. And I knew I had to figure this out, and we all figured it out together. So it was definitely trying times in the beginning, but also more the reason of wanting to get better because I didn't want it to suck forever. So I wanted to get to where I wanted to be as quickly as possible. And you're right, I'm not there yet, but looking back on it, you got to be proud of what you've been able to accomplish no matter where you are.
100%. What were some of those big struggles, man, that first 90 days?
Man, just hopping on the phones, I really wasn't a natural at all. I would get sweaty, I get nervous. The first objection would come my way, I'd stutter over it. I was not a natural. And what I really did was I knew I had to plug in, and that was a big thing I realized. I knew I had to look at people that were doing better than me. So I hopped on Zoom every single day, and I would simply listen to the people that I knew were selling more than me. I listened to every word they said. I wrote it down. I repeated it. I tried to imitate them, how they say it, their tonality, the whole nine. And that's what made me better. Just the repetition of that over and over. There's no way to beat time. And it's kind of like when you're selling an IUL, you say, the compounding interest, there's no way to beat it. It just takes time. And it's the same with selling. You just need to keep getting beat up. You need to keep learning from your own mistakes. And if you're willing to get up from those mistakes, you'll always be better.
What were what were some of the biggest aha moments that maybe you thought wasn't? You know what I mean? Like, because we talk a lot about limiting beliefs. Okay, what were some of those things that you overcame that and calling three people three times in a row or what? Because there's things that you just were choosing not to do because of your belief. Fair.
Right.
What
Right.
were some of those?
So I would say the first one was, like I said, I started off doing in-homes because I was told that if you're not good on the phones, you have a better chance at in-homes because it builds greater trust. So I knew I wasn't good on the phone, so I said I'm going to start with in-homes. And I thought I had a limiting belief on myself that I couldn't do telesales. So it took then that's where I kind of turned it around as well. It was a big aha moment when I went to my first lock-in. It was in Arizona. Marissa was hosting it and I didn't have a car there. I'm over in Florida, so I flew on over and I'm like, okay, I need to try telesales. I'm here. I'm with some of the best people doing telesales, and this is my time to see if I can do it. So I gave it everything I had those 3 days, and I was able to get three sales out of it. And I'm like, all right, I can do this. And that stripped that limiting belief that I can't do telesales. So it allowed me to come back to Florida, and tell the guys that were starting with me, like, hey, we don't have to do in-homes anymore. We can do this over the phone and we can figure this out. So that's when we really started to get the scripts going. We figured out, the most effective way to call, what leads to call as well, have more at bats. I started off on bronzes, and man, I'll tell you what, you'll learn a lot calling bronze ILC leads. You'll be able to go through those, and it's a lot of dialing,
Hey, there
but it's a
may be
lot of
some folks on
objections.
here. There may be some folks on here. I'm sorry, Don, but that don't know what those are,
Ah,
right?
yes.
Maybe they're just getting going. All right. So walk us through that lead mix that you were getting that helped you get those reps in.
right? So
And
I came
where do
into
you
this,
direct your agents now? Like, so if you were giving them advice
yeah,
today, what would you do?
got you. So I started off, I didn't have a lot of money coming into this, coming from the valet. I wasn't exactly lining my pocket. So I had about $5,000 in my bank account. And I knew that it took leads to make this work. So I wasn't necessarily afraid to spend leads, but I was afraid to see some money come out of my account and be able to bet on myself. So I started off with they were bronze leads, which means that someone filled it out 60 plus days, I believe. So they are aged and they also were only $1. So it allowed me to rack them up. You know, you spend $100, you could talk to 100 leads. So it allowed me to have more at bats to talk to more people. And I realized that I didn't need those expensive leads. And frankly, I couldn't afford those expensive leads. Um, but I needed to get my skills up. I needed to get some sales so I could reinvest into myself. And if I didn't reinvest into myself, I would find myself just in the same cycle of cool, I made some sales, I went and blew it on some other stuff. Now I'm in the same exact position. So I knew I needed to treat this like a business from day one, and I needed to invest in myself. So from those bronzes, I was able to sharpen my skills, get better on the phone, fall on my face a lot, and slowly get better and better leads. So instead of 60 plus days, now I'm getting the ones that are $3 a piece. They're, you know, within the last month. Then I'm getting ones that are instant. People just filled them out. And I'm slowly leveling up, giving myself the chance to hit the 48,000 a month because I wouldn't have been able to off of my lead budget at the start.
Hmm.
So now, yeah,
What's the lead? I mean, I guess what's the skill set that you are acquiring while you are getting your reps up through those? Like you just said, I couldn't afford them, but quite frankly, if I could have afforded them, I wouldn't have had the skill level for them anyways.
right.
Does that make sense? So, talk to us about what am I looking to learn through these reps? What am I looking to acquire? Why on a $30 lead is it? You know, I mean, because what I'm hearing is that you can't make that. You have opportunity to make more mistakes with less downfall. Okay,
Yes.
so what are some of those technical things, skillful things that hey, you need to be working. If you can't overcome this, this, and this, and this, and this, man, this is your boat right here.
Right.
What are those
By
things?
far, by far, the biggest is tonality over everything. It doesn't matter what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. There are so many scripts out there. I've, you know, made my own script 20 times over. I've seen your script, Dom. It's like it can be different, but it's the same tonality. It's the demanding, it's the I'm in charge tonality. And I really struggled from that, especially coming from the valet. Is at the valet, it's yes, sir. Oh, I'm so sorry about that, sir. Let me get that for you, sir. It's very hospitality, but you're not in the hospitality business anymore. You're there to get them coverage. So it had to change from I'm so sorry to hey, John, this is what we're going to do. And it's
Hmm.
taking control. And what really switched was on Zoom, like I said, I was learning from people that were doing better than me. And that's the first thing I picked up is none of them were asking for permission. None of them were saying, please give me your social. Like that's what I used to say. Um, as I started, I was like, please go ahead with your social for me. And it's just like, that doesn't work. That's not how you say it. So it took someone telling me, hey, these people are, think of them as order takers. You're the doctor. So you don't go into the doctor and he says, "Can you please do this? Can I please take your blood?" He tells you what's going to happen. And in this scenario, you're the doctor, they're the patient. And if you treat it like that every single time, you will get better results. And it's all a numbers game. Nothing works 100% of the time, but you have to give yourself the best odds every single time. And that's where sharpening your skills comes in handy. The two biggest objections that I would also get in the beginning were the two biggest friction points. It's social and banking. So I realized I had to get better at that as well off rip. Um, so those were the biggest things that I tackled at the start and how it kind of played, especially in both those scenarios, they're very similar. I realized it all goes about casual and the whole setup, wordplay. So I used to,
Yeah.
open up an application and it goes, name, height and weight, social. And I used to ask it in that order. just like reading down the list. And I realized I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't really work. I got to get all the yes, yes, that's correct, and then the big question. So it allowed me to switch it up from figuring out what order I need to ask these questions in to get that better result, to make it casual. Okay, got you, John. We said you served in the Navy, born in Massachusetts, obviously a U.S. citizen, correct? Okay, awesome. Go ahead with that social for me. Super casual, like you're taking the orders. So that's kind of what I tackled, and it all comes around tonality. That was by far the biggest thing.
Man, um, I kind of want to sit there. Anybody have any questions about that? Because that's real crazy, Dom. Like we've been in that realm the last week or so, just really hammering tonality, posture. You know what I
Mhm.
mean, delivery. Because dude, the script's the script. We can sit here and say this, say that. Like, dude, it's how you say it. It's how you say it. It's the positioning that you put yourself in. So,
Was
questions about
there,
it,
I guess,
yeah, you
like,
got to be.
what was like, how did you realize that? You know what I mean? Was it like, did somebody tell you, hey, you're coming across too passive? Did you record yourself? Like, what was kind of that realization from like you said, hospitality posture to
Mhm.
authoritative posture?
Yeah, so I would say what made me realize it was a problem was me falling on my face, me getting that, no, I'm not giving you that, or why would I ever give you that? And me realizing, okay, something needs to change here. Um, but honestly, there was one singular person that helped me with that. It was when I was on Zoom. It was Marissa's onboarding assistant at the time. And she was hearing me dial in the session. She saw I was, really unmuting, really putting in the work. And that's what made her realize, like, okay, I want to help this guy out a little bit more, I think. Um, and she texted me on there and was like, hey, you want to hop in a breakout room so I could hear you individually? So I said, of course, which was uncomfortable once again. I didn't like to unmute on Zoom, but I realized uncomfortability is where you grow the most. So I took her up on it. I went into a separate Zoom and I was just going through my normal routine. And that's when she kind of told me everything I just said about, hey, they are order takers. Most of these people have a job. Who do they listen to? Their boss. They come home. Who do they listen to? Their family members. So they're used to taking orders, not used to, you know, having, I was essentially letting people walk all over me during a call.
Mm.
I wasn't in control at all. The person was in control. I was answering questions instead of asking questions. So that's what made it really switch in my brain. And that was another one of my big aha moments um, in how I was approaching the call and how I was talking to them as well. But yeah, that's kind of how I realized it.
Huge.
There been a time in your business to where you thought you were doing something right and then you realized, damn, I'm definitely not. You know what I mean?
I
Like as it pertains
Yeah,
to sales, like, yeah, I'm doing that. You know what I mean? And you work with agents. This is
right.
the reason I say that. All right. You're building your team. It's hard to say for yourself, right? But you're building a team. You're working with a guy or girl, and they say, Dom, I'm doing that, but how do you handle that? And we've been there. I've been I'm doing that, but
Hmm.
as well. How do you help coach them? And how did you get to that spot of maybe, what does that mean?
Right. I mean, coachability in general, coachability means you're willing to take criticism. And I think if someone is truly willing to take criticism, they're not going to hit you with the quick, no, but I did that. They're going to take it in and really ask themselves, well, hold on a second. Maybe I thought I was doing that, but if they're
Mm,
seeing it from an outside perspective and they know what they're doing more than I do, they got to be onto something. Maybe let me revisit that. Maybe I'm not doing it as much as I think I am. And I take that both on with sales as well as in a leadership role. I was not a born salesman, and I was definitely not a born leader. In this office, when I started with those other two guys, I kind of told them I was like I saw it as like, hey, we're all equals. Like I'm nobody's boss, and I was not taking control. And what it took was me asking them like, hey, what can I do better? And they said, man, you got to take more control. And it was that simple question. And I think it was something I heard from Sean, honestly, of like, just ask them. Crazy, mind blowing, but just ask the question. What can I be doing better? What do you want to see from me that you think I could improve upon? And I asked them that, and they both said in separate conversations, you need to take control more. So that was something where I was like, well, I thought maybe I was taking control, but clearly, if they're both saying it, I'm not. So that's something I need to improve upon. And it's the same with sales. Sales and building a business are essentially the same skills, just a different set. And it's like if you can just hone in and be confident in yourself, you'll do great with both. It goes hand in hand. And if you are a really good salesman, that means you could be a really good recruiter as well. It goes hand in hand, the skills that are needed. The only thing that changes are agents, clients. So it's like they're very transferable skills. And I think that's what I started to learn more and more. And I still learn to this day, honestly. I learn something new every single day. Um, and you have to be. You can't be a know-it-all and you can't think like, man, I'm the greatest this, I'm the greatest that. And someone who also kind of taught me that is Sean. Sean still learns stuff every single day. Um, he's doing the podcasts, and that's something new he's learned. He reaches out to people who are doing better at podcasting and learning from them. So that goes to show if he can learn something, man, who am I to say I can't learn something too?
Massive, massive. Um, that was something that was big, in my growth was really starting to say, hey, maybe you're trying, but you got to be better at taking coaching.
Yeah.
I had to learn to be better. And you know who my coach was. Does that make sense? And he didn't give it to you, and you got like, hey, you gotta be like, dude, all right, damn, all right, I guess you do know. And one thing I started realizing as it pertains to being a leader and also being a good student is that, dude, the teacher gets accolades when they got good students, right? So in this business, your direction, your coaching, advice, and things like that is always coming from a place of, and we're all going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be a little uncomfortable, but we're all going to win. I'm sure Marissa, Sean, your teammates that, have had some difficult conversations with you. But you knew where the intention was. And I want to know, where did that come from, right? Like, how do you know when, somebody's being a little bit more direct or a little bit more, hey, man, this is some of the things that you could be doing better at. How do you know how to filter that out and get back to work? Or did you have to learn that?
Yeah, so I I would say the valet and everything, I'd say my childhood more so prepared me for that because I was in sports all growing up. I always had a coach. I always had somebody teaching me something that they knew what they were talking about more than I did. So I always had someone that was doing better than me in some sense or form. And if you truly want to be where that person is, then you will do what they say. And if you're not willing, you can't lie to yourself and say, well, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, but I'm not listening to him. And kind of, I think Marissa said it before too. It's like you either have a big ego or you have a big business, and you kind of decide which one you have. So you can't be a know-it-all and like, huh, like, okay, yeah, right. Yeah, what does she know or whatever? Because then you got a big ego there, but you will never have a big business. So that's something I learned early on in this. Looking at everybody that would go up on that stage and seeing what a common denominator was they were all hardworking, and for the most part, they're all humble. So it's like if that's what it takes, then that's what I'm willing to do as well.
Dude, I was actually doing an interview with somebody, and we're talking, and they were saying, man, I was working at this other place, and the person I was working with, there were women, and da 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 da. I was like, what does that matter? I was like, buckle up, bro. Like, you think that like you need all guy, you need a fraternity to do good in business? Like, what is going on? You know what I mean? And what you're saying is like being coachable is not a season. It's not a man, I need this type of specific coach. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, no, they are where you want to be. Male, female, black, white, big, small. Who gives a shit?
Mhm.
I met Sean Mike's 38 years old. I was 22, freaking like I was like, dude, who's this white guy in Connecticut? And I was like, dude, but he has something that I want. So I'm gonna listen. We had nothing in common outside of he had a license, he played baseball. Outside of that, dude, I was like, dude, I don't know, dude. You got two kids, been divorced twice, and like I don't really know what else. But you got something I want, which is money. Okay, you got money. You can teach me how to do it. I'm going to listen. Makes sense. And then you start to learn about the guy, and you're like, dude, he actually gives a damn. Actually gives a damn. You know what I mean? And that's
Mhm.
where and that's where it comes into building these relationships. Anybody have any questions for Dom? I want to get into some different sales things, but if you guys have any questions, please hop in. All right, this is
Well, dude, I just have a quick question. You said early on that you recruited two buddies, even though you basically had
yep.
sold nothing. Like, what did that conversation look like? Like, how did you even? Well, what was the motivation for even doing that? You know?
Yeah. So I think the whole reason they were willing to even hear me out is they were very interested from the start. Because I left that valet. I took off 2 weeks and I told my manager, hey, I'm taking off 2 weeks. I want to see this thing full time. So I would always keep in touch with them. We would actually, as stupid as it sounds, we would go to a cigar lounge every weekend. That was like a little thing we did after the valet, after a hard shift. Like, oh man, like, whether we were in the rain, whatever, we'd always just go and like sit there and have a drink, whatever. And every single time we went, they were still at the valet. I wasn't for that first month. So there was 3 or 4 times we would go and they would just ask me, they're like, well, how did it go? How'd your week go? And I was straight honest with them every single time. I said, yeah, I went out. I had 4 appointments today. Two of them didn't show up. One of them had no money, and the other wouldn't even let me in, whatever. And it was like I was honest with how my day went every single time, but I was also very hopeful as well. So I would tell them how my day went, but also what my day tomorrow looked like. So I would say, hey, this happened today, but I have 5 appointments tomorrow, but the average sale is X amount, but I have the ability to make X amount. And I would
Hmm.
tell them where I could be. And they take a look at themselves and looked where they could be tomorrow. Because at the valet, we knew roughly how much we were walking away with. Whether it's a big tip or a small tip, they would average it out on the week. So if you're going to your 8 hour shift, you're walking away with 100, $150. Me, I didn't know what tomorrow brought. So I was honest with them from the start. And then it felt a lot better. But when I did get the good result, I was happy to share that too. But
Yeah.
them seeing the ups and downs, and then when I got my first two sales, it was in one day. So I was able to say, hey, the rest of my week was pretty bad. I told you guys all about it. But today I sold two policies. I've made $1,000. They're like, what? And they would be like, well, how does this work? How does that work? I'd be like, honestly, I don't know yet, but I'm going to figure it out. And they had all these questions because one of them was really analytical. He wanted to know every in and out of this business. And I told him, I don't know your answers, but I'm going to figure them out. And that's what kind of like, he was like, damn. He's like, well, if you're going to figure it out, I want to figure it out with you. So they saw where I was, and it wasn't, I just was just getting going, but they saw I was trying to do something. And they saw them at the position of valet still, they weren't trying to do anything. So they wanted to chase that as well. And also just the belief factor and I guess in me a little bit to hear it out, being a good person and trying to always be honest with people, it goes a lot further than, to just telling people what they want to hear. You have to tell the good with the bad. And I think that's why they were willing to see what this would look like as well. And honestly, so I also got very lucky as well because both of them, year and a half ago, are still here today. And one of them has, taken this like a business as well. And he started doing the same thing I did from off rip. And the other one sells at a very high level. So I got very lucky that they were willing to stick it out and get through all those hard times with me as well. Not many people could say the first two people they recruited are still there. So that
Yeah,
was a little bit of
facts.
luck.
Facts.
That's so
How about
good.
lead? What leads you work? And what do you advise?
Yeah. So I do a split. So I do veteran leads right now. I get them from Lead CRM Center. and I
Yep.
just started another one. It's Life Launch, but veteran leads in general.
Okay.
But I was doing that for a long time and just doing that, but I realized how big IULs can be as well. So I missed out on it for a while. I was like, like I don't know. Didn't want to get uncomfortable. And then I finally realized, like, all right, I got to figure this out. So it's kind of like it's a square one type of deal. I had to relearn some stuff. But anytime you relearn anything or learn something new, you only get stronger. So now what I do is um, I call veterans during the day, and towards the nighttime, starting at like 5 o'clock, I will start to call IUL leads because with IUL leads, you tend to get younger clientele, so they tend to work jobs. So I know they're home more rather than just booking appointments with them all day. Um, and it's also a nice change of pace. You're talking to same clientele all day long. Maybe
Uh,
your day's like, oh man, like, all right, this has been a long one. And it's like, all right. And it's a refresh. You get to talk to new clientele. You're saying a little bit different of a script. And it makes your day very refreshing. So I personally like to do a split of veteran leads and IULs. And for my new agents, I like to get them started on veteran leads because it's a quicker payout and it allows you to sharpen your skills, I think, a little bit more. You get some more objections, build character.
okay. I love it, dude. And I agree 100% with that mix.
Me too.
Uh, let's see. Dom, anything you want to share with us, man?
Yeah,
What's
I
working?
would say I
Yeah.
so I actually had a someone came in the office today and I never really thought about it, but um he was coming from he was doing private security. So one of the guys brought him in. They knew each other from high school. And he was basically saying like, yeah, like my wife just got pregnant, having a kid soon, and I need to change something. And I know, Sean, I don't have any kids. I'm 24, no kids. But Sean always said like, this is the time you need to work now. You want to do it now before you need to. And I told this to the new guy, even though, his wife is pregnant, but it's not too late for him. It would be too late if he waited any longer. But it's like, I'm glad you're here today. And it made me think back of when I was starting, how uncomfortable it can be getting going. Those first 6 months, it's very uncomfortable. When I spent 1,000 of my $5,000 in my bank account on leads, it was very uncomfortable. But I also brought myself to that time and remembered it could be seen as scary and let me like curl up in a ball, or it could be seen as like, this is my moment. Because you think of anyone that's ever done anything, ever succeeded in life. I think of like The Rock, right? The Rock says his $7 record. He had reached in and had $7 in his pocket, and he exploded from there. That's like the start of his origin story. And it's like, wait a minute, like me in this moment, I had a pretty comfortable childhood, honestly. And it's like me in this moment, this is my time. My back's against the wall. It could be seen as very scary, or you could see it as this is exciting, like I'm living. So I chose to see it that way. A, because you want to be positive with yourself. If I curled up in a ball, I wouldn't be where I am right now. Um, I would be sitting back at the valet. But it's like you take a look and it's like this is exciting. I get to have a crazy story. I get to have my background wherever I came from, and I get to write my own write my own book. So it's a very exciting time, and it can be seen as scary if you choose to. So that's what I'll say about that.
I'm muted. Sorry. Um, how you mentioned earlier, and thank you for sharing that. You mentioned the uh, just growing, being more assertive, how reps help you build that up, but what, how can you, I think you hear some folks and you think that like, hey, they're this crazy extrovert. You know what I mean? Like you see a Sean Mike, right? And you're like, wow. You know what I mean? And you're
Hmm.
like, I can't do that, but you can. You know what I mean? In your way.
Hmm.
How did you start to develop that assertiveness, assumptiveness, but in Dom's way. Makes sense? Not
Mm.
hey, not hey, and like you had to grow to start feeling like, oh, this is actually I'm not hurting people. Because I think there's this end of it of like, I don't want to do that because I don't want to hurt people,
Mm.
right? I don't want to be rude to people. I don't want to be mean. Did you ever have some of that early on that you kind of thought maybe I was, yeah, that's a little mean.
Oh,
That's a little,
a
you
hundred
know,
percent. A hundred
okay.
percent. And what you just said, it went through my mind at the time as well. It was like I looked at Sean and I looked at like, hey, like blah blah blah. I go, oh shoot, like I have to do that? I don't think I can. That's not me. And I thought that that's what I had to be that until I started to realize that I can do that in my own way. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be 100%. Everyone has a different style, and I kind of found who I related to most and kind of channeled that. So I'd watch a lot of Grady's YouTubes, and I would watch all the guest speakers he would have on, and I would try and find someone that I felt talked like I did or had the same demeanor I did. And because they were still successful, they were still on there for a reason. So it's like, okay, let me learn more so from him a little bit more in this aspect because I can do that one. So it's really about, it doesn't have to be the one person. It's like, damn, like that guy's very, very different from me. Uh, Different everything. Like I can't do that. It doesn't have to be that way. And it can be someone that is still in a position where you want to be that you can relate to more. So it was trying to find people like that. And, this company, it's massive. There's so many resources. So it wasn't just one person I found. It was multiple and multiple different little aspects of, whether it's their script, like, okay, I like that little piece there. I'm gonna add that. I'm gonna start saying that little word track. And then they'd say something else. I was like, whoa, like I don't think I could say that one. So it's like picking and choosing to
Yeah.
make it your own. And nobody knows yourself better than you. So it's really whatever feels most comfortable. And that's why I tell people when I hand them my script, I'm like, hey, this is what I like to say. But if it's not comfortable for you, throw something in there that gives the same, same tone, same everything, doesn't take away from anything, but it's in your own words. And I think that's the power of finding you and not just trying to be someone else.
Oh, it's a great place. That's a great place to be. I'm gonna open it up. I'm gonna open up the floor for anybody on here, man. All right. You got a 24-year on here making over, dude. What are you gonna gross this year? Or actually, what are you gonna net? Fuck the gross. What are you gonna net?
Last year I net just over 200,
20,
200,000,
23 years old.
which
Not
my
bad.
my year prior at the Valet, I think I net 30,000. So it's like it's a big difference. And this year I don't even know. I think I'm on track for probably somewhere around 400, 4 or 5. Um, and it's crazy because if you asked me a year and a half ago where I could be, I didn't have enough confidence in myself to tell you. Um, so it's not something you have to be born with. It's not something you have to, you know, you've always had to believe, but you could start to believe it today. And I think that's the power of this industry is because it's all in your hands. Dom here, he doesn't dictate your success, you do. And it's cool that, you have these mentors, you have these positive role models, but they don't choose if you're successful or not. And that's a promise I started making to people that come on with me too. It's like, hey, like I can't promise you succeed. I can't promise you fail. The only thing I'll promise is I'll do everything I can to help you succeed, but the rest is on you. That's the only promise I'll make. So, it really is in your hands, your own destiny. You make your own luck, I like to say. So it's very cool.
All right. Well, Dom, if anybody has any questions, you can chime in. But Dom, thank you so much for today. It was great seeing you in Florida. All right. Rich, what's up, man? It's all yours.
Yeah, so I had a quick question. Thank you. Great interview, by the way. Thank you, Tom.
Of
Um,
course.
what I was from you said you recruited right from the jump, which is something that I wanted to do as well. So I was just wondering, two-part question there. When you recruit right from the jump, number one, how did you train or teach your new people, being that you were also new? And number two, how much money did you need, let's say from the beginning, to recruit right away?
Great question. So something I haven't talked about that I'm glad you asked that is third party validation was huge. I was honest where I was. I didn't have to be making $1 million from the get-go for this to be a great opportunity. I was able to point to people who were doing great that have been doing this for longer than I have. So in this area, when I started coming to the office, guy Ethan McKinney was here. So Ethan at the time he was 20 years old and he was doing this for 2 years at the time. So I was able to say, hey, I'm just getting started. I'm, getting my sales here and there. I'm learning. But this guy, Ethan McKinney, he's been doing it for 2 years. He sold 200,000. I was able to validate, not through me directly. So it's the ability to do that as well as all the resources we have. You don't have to be the only one to train, to, teach them. You have all these resources. You have all these people that are on your team wanting you to win and also wanting your agents to win. So it's a huge group effort. And I think what keeps a lot of people from wanting to recruit off rip is, oh, I haven't done it myself yet. I haven't reached where I wanted to be. When I hit X amount, then I'll be able to. When I'm there, I'll be able to do that. But it's a lot of third party validation. If you're not where you want to be, somebody else is, and you could point to that person. If you don't think you have the ability to teach them something, someone else does. So it's just really getting it rolling and learning with them. There's no better way than having someone that's looking up to you. That's the best way to get yourself rolling. I didn't want to show up some days. I didn't want to hop on. I didn't want to dial, but I knew I had to because those guys were there. They were showing up and, they were looking up to me at the time. So, yeah. Does
Like,
that
honey,
answer it?
Thank you.
like,
Of
what are you gonna
course.
do? Just let them not eat? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm hungry. Figure it out. I know you're just 1 year. Just figure it out. It's crazy, dude. Like, when are you ready to, dude? You're never really ready
No.
unless you just gotta go. I like that thing that you said about when I get here, I'll do it. When I get here, I'll do it.
Mhm.
It never works that way. I've never read a book that it went like that. Hey, dude. Hey, I waited here, and when I had this, then this happened. I'm like, best time to do it now. One thing I say about Instagram is that all these influencers and things like that, one thing they say about doing things, they all agree with do it now. Whether they've done anything or not, they all say now is the time.
Yeah.
Isn't it so hard that to pull the trigger? Like, it's that simple to succeed. Is just do it now. And too many people just wait, 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 wait. And there's people saying doing it now and they ain't even done it now. But what they did was make the post. All right.
Hey,
Yeah.
So
Dom, I got a
it's
question.
yeah, what you got, dude?
Hey, so you said it took you really about 3 months to find your stride. What did that look like? Was it just gradually getting better, or was it kind of plateau and then you finally figured it out and popped off?
Great question. So I would say in my first 3 months, it was a lot of me trying to figure out different stuff. But at the end of the day, what kept me going was not only the vision I had, but also reinvesting into myself was huge. So I went very bare minimum. I missed out on a lot of stuff that I had to say no to, friends, family, whatever the case was. But I was super locked in on figuring this out. I became obsessed with it. I'm still obsessed with it. But it's like if you reinvest into yourself and you bet on yourself so hard, I was like, I don't want to be a bad bet. I don't want to. Nobody wants to be a bad bet, you know. You want to give yourself the best shot. So what that looked like, it wasn't just money, it wasn't just leads, it was my time as well. I was reading over the scripts. I was dialing as much as I possibly could. I was calling after eight. I was calling the other coast. It was like going the extra mile so that you're making it easier on yourself. I wanted to win. I wanted to be able to buy leads and not feel like, damn, what if I can't make the money back? And it's like the more you sharpen your skills, the easier it becomes. And I tell everybody too, there's only three things to be successful in this business. It is your skill level, it's your work level, and your lead flow. So what's cool about it is your skill level will automatically get better if your work level is higher. So the more reps you're putting in, the more dials you're making, you're automatically going to get better. There's no way you get worse by doing something more.
Right.
And then the reason the lead flow is so big is you could be the most skillful, most hardworking person, but if you have nobody to call, you're not going to get the results either. So it always boils down to these three things. If you're like, hey, I'm not successful with this, I'm not where I want to be, I'm not reaching the goals I want, take a good look in the mirror, like we were saying earlier, and be honest with yourself on these three things. Because it's like, well, I'm on Zoom all the time with my camera off and I'm not actually dialing. And it's like,
Right.
okay, shoot, I could work harder. Or it's like, well, I'm the best at this. I don't get how these people say no to me. It's like, well, I could improve on this. I'm losing a lot of people here. Maybe I got to switch it up. So it's being honest with yourself, and these three things you could scale it up to whatever you want. So after those 3 months, I would say is when I started to kind of figure it out, and it allowed me to, that $1,000 I spent in the first month, I sold like 3,000 off of it, and it's like I took that 3,000 and I was like, that's cool. Like, let me put another two in, and it's just constantly reinvesting in myself more and more. So I was scaling myself up, giving myself the best shot.
Yeah.
Is what I'll say. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank
That
you.
does that help?
Yeah, it was my first day, and I actually did better than I thought I would. So it
Awesome.
was like getting that overcoming in the beginning. Um, but I did one other job like this, but I actually believe in this more than the other job. So
Yeah.
I hated the other one, but this one was like, hey, these people asked for this.
Yeah. And you have
So
to
yeah,
have
it was
that vision
yeah,
and belief in yourself and in what you're doing.
right,
And it's only up from there too. So no matter where you're starting at, you'll only ever get better. And everyone starts at different levels, but everyone has the ability to get to, the same level essentially.
right.
So very cool. Keep it up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course.
Dude, what did you like plug into? Because you talk about that belief, but I imagine you didn't just like sit in the office by yourself and just maintain belief. So like what kind of things were you plugged into to like, fuel that belief even though you weren't doing anything or weren't being like successful early on?
Right. So I would say the first thing was I would always dial from home. And this was before the office, before anything. I would hop on Zoom and I would make myself hop on Zoom. Now, the problem was at first, I would always do what I was just saying. I would turn off the camera, I go get a lunch, come back 2, 3 hours later, and it's like I wasn't really being honest with myself and I wasn't getting the result I wanted. So it took me having to really look at myself in the mirror with these three things and say, damn, what could I improve on? And it was all of them, honestly. But like, being honest with myself and also my fiance now. So, you know, at home I would sit there and she would see me go and get lunch and she really was like, "What are you doing?" So she was a big a big reason, a person to have in my corner to motivate me on I could do better. She believed in me when I didn't. Sean believed in me when I didn't. And it's like those are the people that pick you up at the end of the day. So it was getting plugged into Zoom and also getting plugged into weekly meetings was huge. So Marissa did a weekly meeting, just kind of going over the business, statistics, whatever, submit numbers, whatever it was, IP numbers, and I didn't miss a single one. I still haven't missed a single one except for one time I was out of the country, and I couldn't get in. But a year and a half, I went on every single call. Um, and that's me holding myself accountable to something I say I'm going to do. And if I don't get on that, I'm only letting myself down and I'm only hurting myself. Um, and also in the first few months, I was never on any of those boards. I was never on any of oh, look at the top 10. I was never on there. That also really fueled me. It hurt every time to get on there and look at those boards and not see my name. And I was like, damn, I want to change that. Almost like a positive uh, competition, competitiveness. So it really fueled me hopping on those, watching all Grady's calls, just trying to be plugged in. Because I think Grady said it before. It's like a lone wolf dies alone. So it's like you don't just want to be like, man, I'll figure this out by myself. Like it's not that hard. I could do this. I could do that. It's like use the resources, plug yourself in, and you're gonna accelerate your growth.
So good.
Good
Anybody
stuff,
got any?
Dom. Yo, dude, I want to say thank you again, everybody. Great questions. All right. Let's have a great weekend. One thing, close us out with this is why is weekends, Dom? All right. And we're going to be done when you're done with this. Why are weekends such a great time to produce?
So I was told early on, if you're not where you want to be, you work on Saturday, you call on Sunday. So it's like when other people aren't doing it, that's the separation time. That's the time where you can set yourself apart and reach the goals you want to reach. So if you are not where you want to be, dialing on Saturdays, taking calls on Sundays, is huge for your business.
Massive. Dude, thanks again, everybody. Great job. Let's kill it this weekend. All right. New agent training tomorrow morning, 10 Eastern. All right. Zoom.fflaw.com. See you guys on there. Have a great evening. Peace out, Dom. Thanks again, brother.
Yeah,
Later.
you're very welcome. Thank you.
That'll do it, I guess.